AI has absolutely dominated the headlines in 2023. Many people have already asked, is AI going to replace us? And guess what? For some, it already has. If you haven't heard by now, McDonald's has already launched its own AI restaurant, which has replaced all human interaction. But as the cost of college continues to rise, it begs to ask the question, can AI replace even those in the financial industry? Well, I decided to seek out that answer myself. I challenged ChatGPT to come up with a plan to help a family pay for college.
Oh, it is on, Phyllis. It is so on.
You'll want to stick around because we want to talk through what the results are of AI versus what a CFP professional would do instead. If we haven't met yet, my name's Danny Sinowitz. I'm the college dude, and I hate student loans. My goal is to avoid, limit, or completely eliminate student loan debt for every family that I work with. So today, I wanted to see if AI and specifically ChatGPT could come up with a plan to avoid student loan debt and make sure that this family is on a path to paying for college in the most efficient way possible. When it comes to getting a good output from AI, you need to have a good input.
Right, input.
So I wanted to take a hypothetical case, gather some of the facts that I would use to help a family plan, and use that same information to see if ChatGPT could come up with a plan to help pay for college. To be very clear, in this video, we're not covering all the areas of financial planning because this video would be way longer than that. Instead, I was looking for a few nuggets that ChatGPT could give us, some considerations, and to see if there were any tactics that it could come up with to then make this family plan and make sure that they are paying less for the net cost of college and avoiding student loan debt. So what I did was I took a hypothetical case, we took some of this information, and I asked ChatGPT to give us some specific tactics that they would use, some high-level considerations, and some future considerations that they should consider in order for this family to make sure that they can graduate debt-free and continue on the path to retirement.
I like that.
There are some definite takeaways that you want to make sure that you stick around for to learn what AI can do, but there are also some shortcomings that proves that AI cannot yet give CFP level knowledge to a family who's looking to go for college. But I want to stress that as yet, as AI is currently still in its infancy stages, and we could be heading towards a stronger, smarter artificial intelligence with ChatGPT. So let's get into some of the details. We're going to start by taking a look at the Smith family. John Smith is age 45 years old, and Mary Smith is 44 years old. They have 3 kids. Junior is 18, heading to college next year. Stephen is 16, heading to college in 2 years, and then Sally is 14, heading to college in 4 years. The Smiths live in Pennsylvania, so we're going to focus on Pennsylvania schools that are in state, and the ones that are out of state, we're going to clearly distinct and what that looks like. As Junior is looking to go to college a year from now, the 4 schools on his list are Penn State University, an in-state school. There's Millersville University, which is also an in-state school. University of Delaware, an out-of-state state school, and the University of Penn, an Ivy League school. When it comes to the high-level priority for the Smiths, their goal is to make sure that both Mary and John can retire at age 65. When it comes to some of the financial background for the Smiths, John is a teacher at the public school system through the state of Pennsylvania. He's making $80,000 a year, and he's contributing 7.5% to his pension. Mary's a mid-level executive. She's making $100,000 a year, and she's contributing 7.5% to her pre-tax 401k. John and Mary, like good savers do, are also contributing $4,000 each to a Roth IRA.
How great are you little saver?
They also have 3 529 plans, one in each of the kids' names, and Junior has $20,000 in his 529 plan. So if you can't tell by now, the Smiths are great savers, and they want to make sure that they can fund 4 years of school for Junior, Sally, and for Stephen. They've also built an emergency fund, and they have $33,000, which matches the $11,000 of expenses. And they also have minimal debt, just a mortgage, and they have $200,000 of home equity. When it comes to their high-level goals, the Smiths have said they're okay with helping their kids, but they really want to stay on track for retirement. They feel that the kids are going to be successful enough that if they want to go to college, they should figure out the best way to pay for it.
You're on your own.
They're going to help, but not at the expense of sacrificing their retirement. Junior's an education major, so they want to make sure that he does not incur serious debt. He's a very bright kid and he's doing really well in school, but they want to make sure that he's going to the best school to give him the best chance to succeed and get a job as a teacher that he would want to have. We're going to say that Junior is a very bright kid. He's got a 3.9 GPA, scored a 1450 on his SATs, and he's able to get into pretty much any school on his list. And we got to determine what's right for him in terms of figuring out the best financial fit. One thing I didn't tell ChatGPT to do, which you have to do as a family, is you have to figure out other things such as social fit, academic fit, and the geographic fit to make sure that this school is right for you. But today, we're just going to strictly focus on the financial fit to see if ChatGPT can come up with some ways that they can take this family and help them plan ahead. As I mentioned to you before, it's so important to make sure that you give a good input in order to get a good output from ChatGPT. So the first thing that I told ChatGPT is to take the approach as if ChatGPT is a certified financial planning professional. I also told ChatGPT that I'm looking for both quantitative and qualitative recommendations so that we can get some specific tactics to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but also some things on the human side to make sure that as we plan ahead, that this family, the Smiths, are able to achieve their goals and make sure that their kids are not saddled with student loan debt. As I gave the financial information to ChatGPT, I actually prompted it to then get back to me and give me a summary of what I just told it. ChatGPT does a great job of summarizing that information, and it clearly had the income information, the savings information, some of the 401k and tax information that we were talking about, along with the 529 plan and the debt situation that we were discussing as well. So in terms of it passing the test of understanding what I was telling it, it seemed to pass the first one with a thumbs up.
That's good. That's a good start.
It then asked me to provide some additional context, specifically what the actual child's merit has been. So SAT and ACT scores, GPA, along with scores of the two younger children. So I gave to ChatGPT the information of what the scores are and the 4 schools on the list that we were talking about. As you can see here, ChatGPT did a great job of giving me some of the information and the profiles of these schools and some of the considerations that juniors should be looking at. It then went ahead and gave me some high-level considerations that I should be taking into account and some of the things that we want to make sure of are done at the financial level. That's when I said, whoa, 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 not so fast.
Slow down, slow down, slow down.
We've not yet covered some of the goals in which we wanted to talk about and some of the specifics. So I had to make sure that I told ChatGPT to pump the brakes and let me give some more information. I mentioned to them that the Smiths are looking for some specifics in terms of tax planning while also avoiding serious loan debt themselves. If they were to incur some loan debt, they at least want to start with the federal subsidized and unsubsidized loans that would be in junior's name only, not in their name. From there, I mentioned that we also want to talk through some additional tax planning items that could be available to them, but making sure that the primary goal of retiring at age 65 is the priority, and that is not to be messed with. ChatGPT then thanked me for providing the information. I thought that was kind of nice.
And you're so polite.
It then was able to summarize for me the goals in which I had just laid out. So again, it did a great job of making sure it understood what I was asking it, and then before it actually came up with the recommendations, made sure to reiterate the goals. It then gave me 9 high-level things that I should be considering. But again, I said I want to make sure, though, that we cover 3 things. Number 1, I wanted some specific tactics that you could give me for this family just based on this information alone that we could look at to help with some tax savings and some things that they must be considering. Number 2, I wanted a full specific assessment for some high-level considerations of their current plan and what they could be doing differently. And number 3, I wanted some future considerations as both Stephen and Sally are going into college to make sure that we cover all 3 of these bases so that the initial plan that's in place can be adjusted accordingly. This is where, unfortunately, I felt that ChatGPT came up a little short. When I asked for specific tactics for the family, it just gave me some high-level advice. For example, maximizing contributions to tax advantage vehicles. It did not say a specific amount or what I should be striving for if there was any congruence with other things within the plan. The other thing it mentioned for me to do is continue with Roth IRA contributions. I'll explain real shortly why I don't think that's the right move. It also mentioned to explore tax education credits. It didn't give me any specifics of what those tax credits can be, how I should take action to go further. It just told me to explore it.
Exploring
yourself.
Lastly, it told me to actually consult with a certified financial planner, and if I'm going to go that route, to make sure that I'm keeping in mind both short and long-term goal planning. In terms of the overall assessment, I would actually agree with the high level. The first thing that it told me is the financial situation seems stable. They've established an emergency fund. They appear to have stable income with both employers that John and Mary are working at, and they're both saving into their retirement accounts at work, but also on their own with Roth IRA. It then told me to assess the current options that Junior has right now, specifically when it comes to making sure that he's carefully assessing the options, making sure he's looking to take advantage of tax credits, and to consider in-state options. Out of those three, the in-state options one is probably the best advice, or at least the most specific advice. And then for more of the long-term approach, some things to be considerate of for both Stephen and Sally, Junior's younger siblings, it told us to start looking to applying for scholarships early and to make sure that we do things like fill out the free application for federal student aid and to make sure that we continue doing well in school to maximize their scholarships and grant availability through school. So let's summarize. How did ChatGPT actually do when it comes to strategizing to pay for college? Let's start with the good. It gave a good input when it came to actually giving us a starting point. So some things that we want to talk about, like completing the free application for federal student aid, like making sure that we're considering tax credits, and making sure that as we continue to contribute to retirement accounts, that could also have an effect on aid. That was a good high-level input from ChatGPT. The next is that I actually thought it gave some pretty good sound advice. So for example, it didn't mention tapping into the emergency fund to pay for college, but rather to keep the emergency fund as is and continue to have that in case something were to come up. It did also give us 9 good bullet points of some things that we should be considering and what to look out for. Lastly, what I think it did the best job of was actually going through each of those schools and saying what the profile is for each of them, how they award aid, and the fact that it's either in-state or out-of-state and what you should be considering and maybe some schools that you should not be considering. When it comes to the bad, it didn't mention any specific tactics, even some considerations of these specific tactics. To be very clear, as a financial planner, you cannot just be giving recommendations. You need to make sure that the advice is high level and educational. So we'll give ChatGPT the benefit of the doubt there. However, it didn't mention any types of specific tactics, such as no longer contributing to the Roth IRA, but instead taking the funds that you're already contributing to the Roth and bumping up the amount that you could be contributing to either Mary's 401k or to John's 403b in order to lower the amount of modified adjusted gross income. If they were to take the Roth IRA contributions and instead move them to pre-tax accounts, they could actually get a higher American Opportunity Tax Credit.
Say what now?
It also didn't mention anything about continuing to contribute to Junior's 529 plan in order to get the PA state tax credit. If the Smiths would continue to do so, they could continue saving on state taxes as well. From a high level, I think it's safe to say that ChatGPT can't yet untangle the complex. But I want to stress yet, because I do think some of this information which they were able to input and give me this in a matter of seconds is impressive nonetheless. The things that it didn't mention but should have, number one is tax credits. It mentioned the tax credits, but it didn't give any specifics of what they can actually do to make sure that they're maximizing them. The second thing I didn't think it did a very good job of was mentioning the retirement allocation reviews, but not the 529 plan reviews. We have no idea how the 529 plan is allocated here. So again, maybe we'll give ChatGPT the benefit of the doubt, but they didn't mention to look now that Junior is getting closer to college to make sure that it's allocated accordingly. The other two big things that I feel like it left out, number one is any idea of public service loan forgiveness. For John, as the father, he works at a public service job. He could be eligible if he were to take out Parent Plus loans for public service loan forgiveness. Now, again, that strategy is more nuanced and it would require some more information and some tax planning down the road, but ChatGPT didn't even mention it. So we don't even know if that's an option if we're just solely basing this off ChatGPT's recommendation. The other thing that it didn't mention was either the Teach Grant or teacher loan forgiveness for Junior. If Junior's looking to go to be an education major, he could qualify for the Teach Grant and for teacher loan forgiveness. Those two forms of financial aid do have some criteria which you need to follow, and there are some specifics, so it may or may not be a fit for Junior, but it wasn't even mentioned. The two things mentioned that shouldn't have been mentioned, number one is the Roth IRA contributions. ChatGPT said that you can actually take out these contributions from a Roth IRA without any type of penalty or taxable implications, which is technically true, but we also want to keep in mind two big things. Number one, that could have an effect on financial aid ability, because if you take money from a Roth IRA, while it may not be penalized, you are required to report this information on the FAFSA. The other thing that we want to keep in mind is by taking these dollars out now, it could be hurting both John and Mary down the road when it comes to actually planning for retirement. The next thing that it mentioned that I disagree with is that you shouldn't continue funding Roth IRAs for this specific hypothetical family. And the reason being is because if you instead were contributing those to a pre-tax account, This family could then maximize the full American Opportunity Tax Credit. So the $8,000 a year that they were saving in Roth, if it instead were contributed to a pre-tax account, that could be dollars in the pocket in form of a tax credit for John and Mary. When it comes to the actual takeaways of this, though, we got to remember ChatGPT is not a competitor. It's a collaborator. The information that was provided on this hypothetical case, I actually thought they did a pretty good job of explaining some high-level things at a very basic, fundamental level that you should be on the lookout for. They did not get into tactics, and to some degree, I can understand why. ChatGPT cannot be responsible if you take a recommendation and then act on it. However, I felt like the information was just inquisitive of telling you where to go, which if you're typing this information to ChatGPT, maybe that's the best way to go for right now. It can be a good starting point. It's certainly not going to be the answer to your financial questions. It's safe to say that AI is still in its infancy stages. It's kind of like the internet in the early 90s. It's just getting started and it's going to only take off from here. I do expect it to be transformative, but there's no question that at this point in time, a human touch is still required. As always, this information is meant to be educational and general in nature only and is not meant to be taken as specific advice. If you have questions, make sure you're consulting with your tax professional, your CFP, or your educational consultant who can better answer some of these specific questions. For more great college insights, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.